Can we please stop normalizing dads being jealous of their kids? Because it's really about grape culture. And I'm going to use Pamela Anderson to prove my point. Because what Tommy did to Pamela is actually something that we see all the time. The difference is that Tommy actually came out and said it. I'm going to tie some things together, but I want people to understand just how common this is and also how forked up it is, because it leads to women dying. So in Pamela Anderson's own version of her own story, it wasn't stolen from her by Seth Rogen and all those dudes. And I'm doing another video on that because fork them. So in Pamela, A Love Story, she talks about Tommy and how, after having kids and they were, babies, very small, she says, I think Tommy went through a little bit of postpartum. I love how much grace she gives this man, but this is not postpartum. What this is male entitlement, that under patriarchy, men are taught that they own us. But basically, we were created to serve them. And if anything stands in the way, and they are not the king baby who should be attended to all the time, and if something is not always about them, right? It's a crisis! And this is what happens to so many men once a child comes into the picture. Because they expect the woman to just be the sidecar on their adventure of life. They're the sun, we're just a planet. Another kid is supposed to come in and be another planet, so everyone just revolves around the king baby dad's son. But the reality of parenthood, they don't have to do anything. This is her job. They just have to work. And guess what? Her job is overwhelming and undervalued and exploited. Emotional labor, domestic labor, invisible labor, mental load, birthing the baby, almost dying doing that because it's so traumatizing, especially for Black, Indigenous, and other women of color, especially Black women. Birth alone is a trauma. And then they have to feed the baby and take care of the baby. And dads get so mad. They're like, well, what about me? Because look at this. Look what he says. Tommy was saying, I want my wife back. I want my wife back. What do you think he means by that? Oh, he's going to tell you. So she explains that at this point, they'd been through their Schmegs tapes being stolen. Her basically getting essayed by the world without her consent. All these people are watching her tapes, mostly men. Tommy didn't feel that. Yes, it was stressful for him. But he came out of it looking like a hero. He's a rock star. She lost everything because of those tapes. She births 2 babies. And she said in that moment, I need some fucking help around here. Because of weaponized incompetence and the way men are conditioned and their entitlements. This is a very common sentiment. Desperate for help and men doing nothing other than get jealous of the baby. So she calls him out that night. This is the night that he got violent. This is the first time she's really stood up to him and talked to him this way. She says that. She says, you've got to grow up. It's not about you anymore. And this right here is exactly why, which I'm going to go into in a second. Domestic violence often starts in terms of the physical part when a woman gets pregnant, because she's super vulnerable, or right after the birth of the child, because daddy gets jealous. And that's when he went black. Now, anyone who's ever been in a violent relationship, I know this, you know the black eyes, right? When their pupils dilate and they turn black, something shifts in them. And it's like they're possessed by someone in those moments. You could die. So she called the police, left the receiver off the hook as a witness and to get help. And this is the first time he was physical with her. So apparently he ended up kicking her. There was marks all over her, red marks all over. So it wasn't just kicking. And she was holding the baby while he did this. So there was a restraining order. He wasn't allowed to go anywhere near her. And when they interviewed him right after, this is what he said. I'm very sorry that this is happening to us. He's a victim of this. He's the one who did it, but he's a victim. Then when he does an interview later on, he's like, I never hit Pamela. And the interviewer's like, well, grabbing a woman, shaking her, He's like, that's not cool either. When the lady's like, but why would you do that? What was it about your anger that would make you lash out physically? Like, what's the difference? Why now? Why that night? It's just a lot of pressure. This is the excuse that cops use because they're like the #1 abusers out there. Oh, my job has so much pressure. As if that is the only job with pressure. Never believe a man that says he's being violent because of pressure. Men are very calculated. They do not act this way in front of anyone else. They can emotionally regulate at work and other places. It's just behind closed doors with their wives. They all of a sudden have so much pressure. They can't handle it. I don't know what came over me. Blah. He's like, we had the Schmegs tapes and then we have 2 new babies. As she's the one doing all the work. She's the one who birthed these children. But he's the one who has pressure. Okay, you'll see how much they're full of crap. And this is when he says it. Tommy comes third now instead of first. I don't know how to deal with that. And really, the whole argument stemmed that evening from me wanting some love. Are you kidding me? Domestic violence is not a woman's issue. We are the ones who have to deal with this issue. And it's not just women. Okay, want to be really clear on that, but I'm talking about women because we are the ones who deal with it the most. Domestic violence is a male entitlement problem. It's a men hating themselves problem because patriarchy has conditioned them to feel so entitled and has stripped them of their humanity, so much so that they can't see us as humans because they need to dominate. They will not let go of that power and that entitlement because that will require work on themselves and deconstructing all this crap they've been taught. And when they are not the most important person in a woman's life, they make her and those children pay. And if those children are sons and they don't get help, they're going to do the same thing when they're dads, or they will end up in an abusive relationship themselves on the receiving end. Men have been saying all along that we trap them with babies, when we know now that men are the ones who trap us with babies. Because once you have a kid, you can't run away. You are tied to that man for the rest of your life unless you have a restraining order or some sort of, legal protection. Or he disappears and, goes off to ruin another woman's life and doesn't care about you anymore because he's discarded you. Having a baby with you means you can never fully cut him out of your life. That's why so many of these men love to have children right away. And that's also when the abuse starts. 25% of women, this is an international study, are abused for the first time during pregnancy. Two of the biggest reasons: jealousy towards the unborn child and anger towards the unborn child. When I went to go do some more research on this, I like to show how common things are. There's numerous articles about dads being like, I'm jealous towards my son. Moms being like, why is my husband so jealous of my baby? I mean, it was hard to pick out of all these articles. There's so many Reddit posts about this. And then I found this gem. I cannot believe this man actually put his name on this and put it in the New York Times. And this was just like 2 years ago, I think. But I'm glad he did. Because men are saying things out loud now that are horrifying. But just because they're saying it doesn't mean that it's normal or okay. Right out of the gate. I'm competing with my 2-year-old son. I'm not proud of it, but sometimes I'm jealous of my wife's little boyfriend. She actually calls him that. Maybe she came up with that name, but I'm guessing she calls him that because her husband's ridiculous behavior. The way he talks about his child, y'all. And look at this. This goes back to gender reveal parties. So many men want sons so bad because, they want a mini-me. And they also don't want a daughter because they don't want the world to treat their daughters the way they treat women. But apparently having a son is also a problem for selfish, entitled men who will not unpack all of this crap. When I found out I was having a son, I envisioned us going on hikes, Stone Temple Pilots, Sixers game. And now he's confused. How is it that I'm jealous of a son that I always wanted? And this is what I have a problem with. He starts citing, psychologists and other people. And this one person's like, relationships change between parents, often leaving one partner, men, vying for the attention of a spouse. Jealousy towards a child isn't all that uncommon. I don't know. I haven't seen any articles about women being jealous of their babies because their husbands are spending so much time with their babies. Have you ever read that article? If you have, let me know in the comments. I have never seen that. But there are dozens and dozens and dozens of articles about this. So let's be clear about who we're talking about. And then he says it all here. Before we had kids, I was the one my wife needed to look after. He said it. He really said it. I'd always operated under the notion that my brand of helplessness was endearing, adorable even. And it seemed like the unspoken agreement between the two of us. I promised to provide constant laughter and endless adventure and all this crap. Y'all, this is a guy who pranks. He's a comedian. And you know what I say about men who prank their wives? Ugh. Remember how I tell you that men often see marriage as the finish line? I found a woman who would put up with me and my antics. I'm D-O-N-E done. He literally thinks that all he's supposed to do from now on is tell ridiculous stories and be entertaining. You're not a clown. You're a man. Now you're a dad. Grow up. Now look at this word right here. All she had to do in return, besides going to my comedy shows and blah, 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 help me limp through my adult life without accidentally unaliving myself and winding up in jail. Men really do want to marry their moms, and they can't understand why we don't want to fork our sons. She's also over his jokes and pranks, but little boyfriend gets away with anything. Yeah, he's 2. And he's like, well, let's talk about it more because it's common. It's common, but it's not normal. Entitlement is the foundation of rape culture and domestic violence too. This is how so many men feel. Maybe not all of them are violent. You never know. It's too late.